you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So I'd like you to introduce yourself to the students that are watching us and tell us a little bit about you and your organization.
Yes, so I'm Michael Hantman. I'm a lawyer or attorney, and I've been, I guess, a member of the Florida Bar, which is like the group that gives attorneys their licenses so that we can legally practice law. I've been a member of the bar for about 19 years. Early in my career, I was a government lawyer. I worked for the Florida Attorney General's office. And then in 2006, I joined Holland and Knight, which is one of the largest law firms in the world. We have 28 offices, mostly in America, but also a few in other countries, like in London, England. We have an office, and in Colombia and in Mexico. Our firm has about 1,300 lawyers in all these different offices. And last year, we actually, for the first time, our firm made just over $1 billion. It was our first year ever passing the $1 billion mark. So things have been going well at the firm.
That's impressive. And tell me, Michael, why did you choose to be a lawyer? Did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer?
No, I didn't. I'll tell you, when I was about 16, I was like a junior in high school, and our history teacher made us read a book called The Brethren. The Brethren was a book written about like the U.S. Supreme Court back in like the 1970s. And I just fell in love with that book. I found it to be so interesting, and all these important cases that come before the Supreme Court. Like back then, the big one was called Roe v. Wade, which was in 1972, I believe, and it had to do with whether people should have a legal right to have an abortion or not. And I just found the way that the Supreme Court works to be really interesting, and some of the issues that they face to be fascinating. And that's really when I first started thinking about being a lawyer, when I was about 16 or 17.
And how many different types of jobs did you have? Did they all relate to your current position as a lawyer?
No, I had different jobs when I was in college. At my university, I worked in the admissions office, things like that. And then after I finished college and before I went to law school, I actually taught high school English for 1 year. I taught high school English and literature in a public school here in Miami, and then I went on to law school when I was like 24 or so.
So was the admissions job your first job?
Yeah, I guess so. It kind of was. Yeah, I was probably about 19 or so, and that was the first job I really had, which was working in the office that sort of figured out whether certain high school students should be accepted to our university or not. And I wasn't doing super important stuff, just kind of organizing and helping our admissions people, figure out who they wanted to admit and who they didn't, and different things like that.
And did some of the skills you used for your first job, do you put them in practice now?
Yeah, no, not so much there. I mean, organization certainly is an important part of my job and any job, really. But the one thing that really helped train me for being a lawyer and for going to law school was my university. I was a literature major, so I just basically read books all day and wrote papers. And that was really helpful because we used to read a lot. I went to a pretty demanding university, and I would say that some weeks the assigned reading was like 1,000 pages. We had to write a lot of really long papers. Like my last year of college, I had to write what's called a senior thesis, which was like a 150-page book. And so I really got comfortable with a lot of reading and a lot of writing, which is a lot of what we do as lawyers. It's reading things and figuring out, not only what they mean, but the holes or the weaknesses in the different arguments, and figuring out how to attack problems. So I did a lot of that in college, and it helped me a lot when I went to law school and then in the practice of law.
So now that you mentioned about your a little bit about the literature and reading, tell us all about your educational path. What did it look like? Did your education like Did you have any specific trainings or certifications that were required?
No, not really. So after college, after high school, I went to college and did 4 years of college. Um, and I went to a liberal arts college. So what that basically means is that we didn't learn how to do certain jobs. We really learned how to think and how to reason and how to digest a lot of information and things like that. Um, and then again, I went on to teach for a year and then law school. And then as a lawyer, you need to pass a very, very hard exam called the bar exam. And that's like I think when I took it, it was like a 2.5 day test. It was like something like probably close to 20 hours. And you study for it for months and months. I mean, I think I studied for, well, I mean, really all of law school is studying for it. But then when you finish law school, then you have several months where really all you do all day and all night is study. And it's, so that's the only real certification that I have is being a member of the Florida Bar, which lets me practice law in the state of Florida.
And tell us, what does a day in your life look like?
Mm. That's so hard to say. Every day looks a little bit different. Obviously, now in coronavirus, I do most of my work from home. Our office is mostly closed. The rule is that we can go into the office if we need to, but not if we want to. So I do most of my work from home. But historically, before coronavirus, I would go to the office, probably most mornings around 8 in the morning. I actually didn't like to work very late. So oftentimes I'd come home at 4 or 5, but then work in the evenings. And then a lot of my job is travel. I'm not doing that much of that this year because it's so much harder with coronavirus and all these safety restrictions. But I'm still doing some travel. Like last week, I was down in the Caribbean, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, on a case. In that instance, the government down in the U.S. Virgin Islands is very concerned about some things that my client did, and they wanted to talk with me. And I thought, it makes more sense for me to talk with them in person, try and develop a relationship and some trust. So I jumped on a plane and went down there. But really, every day looks very different. Some days I'm writing a lot. Some days I'm in court arguing a lot. Other days I'm dealing with emergencies that come up and how are we going to handle this emergency. Other times I'm working with younger lawyers who work for me, who are seeking my advice as to how to handle a certain thing. And other times I'm doing stuff for the firm, like firm administration, different decisions we have to make about hiring people or firing people. We don't do a lot of firing, but mostly hiring people and where do we need team members to join our firm, maybe in different cities, or maybe somebody that has a certain specialty that they're really good at that we need some more help at. So my days every day looks very, very different. These days, it's a lot of Zoom calls.
Yeah, exactly. So for students that are watching and thinking maybe I would like to be in law, work in law, and I like reading and writing, but you also need to have some people skills, correct?
Yes. It depends a little bit on what type of law you practice. You really, for what I do, I'm a litigator. So I'm a courtroom lawyer. So I argue in front of juries a lot and things like that. In that type of part of the law, you really need people skills. Because if you go into court and a jury hates you and you're a jerk and you don't speak well, it's not to say that you'll definitely lose, but they won't want to try and help you and your client. Other areas of law, it's not as important. As long as you're really good, the people skills might take a back seat. One area like that is tax law. A lot of tax lawyers tend to be very, very good at like math and numbers, and the really good ones, it doesn't even matter if they have a good personality because they can save clients lots and lots of money. And the client is like, you know what? I don't like dealing with this person that much, but boy, is he a good tax lawyer. But in most areas, in most jobs, in a lot of jobs, certainly, good people skills, being kind, being well spoken, treating people with respect. Those are all key in almost every job.
Perfect. And just to wrap it up, what resources or additional information you think it's important for students to know if they're interested in learning more about the type of work you do?
I would say that there are a lot of really good books out there about the law. The Brethren, it probably might be a little bit, for eighth graders, you might want to wait a couple of years. But there's tons of books out there that talk about the law and how it works and some of the important skills. So I would really think about Googling, middle school lawyer advice, Google things like that, and you'll come up with a bunch of articles and maybe some books. But really, a big part of the job is what we call critical thinking, which is figuring out how to attack problems and figuring out how to explain why this situation isn't like that other situation, or why it is like that other situation. And it's really that's the great thing that law school teaches you more than anything else. It teaches you how to think. It doesn't teach you how to practice law. If I finished law school and I didn't know where the court was. So there's lots of things you don't know and you don't get taught in law school, but it teaches you how to think. And even if like my father went to law school. He never practiced law one day of his life. And he always said that his law education was really helpful in business. He was a business person. So law school is a great tool for teaching you how to think and how to attack business problems and legal problems. So it's something I strongly think that a lot of people should consider, even if you don't want to practice law. My father did very well with that legal education.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael, for all your information, your insight, and we invite the students to keep watching all the videos on the speaker series, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.